It feels warm. It's as a result of a force that exists between my palms. And that will take us to today's topic, which is frictional force. What is frictional force? Frictional force is a force that opposes relative motion between two objects or two surfaces in contact. It opposes relative motion between two objects or two surfaces in contact. If this is a horizontal surface and this is an object and a force is applied at this end, there is a force that exists between this object and this horizontal surface, and that force is what we call frictional force. It opposes relative motion between two objects in contact. There are two types of frictional force. And number one is static friction. And number two is kinetic friction. All right. So what is static friction? Static friction is a frictional force that must be overcome before a body will start to move over another. If you park your car, there is a force that exists between your tire and the earth surface, and that force is frictional force, and that is static friction. So every object at rest, resting on another body, there is a force that exists between these two objects, and that is what we call frictional force. So before an object can begin to move over another, we must overcome frictional force. And number two, another name for static friction is limiting friction. Number two is kinetic friction. Kinetic friction is the frictional force that must be overcome before an object can move over another with uniform speed. So, for an object at rest, the frictional force at work is static friction. For an object in motion, before it can move over another with uniform speed, we must overcome kinetic friction. Another name for kinetic friction is dynamic friction. Remember, if a car is at rest, the frictional force holding it is what we call static friction. If a car is in motion, the frictional force that must be overcome before it can move with uniform speed is what we call kinetic friction or dynamic friction.